Greetings, brothers and sisters. It's brother Mota Mwanidi sharing the authentic truth brought to us by Zula, the second the messenger in the mysteries and in the hidden revelations of the word of Loba. We give thanks to Loba, creator of heaven and earth, for his great, glorious, and formidable, and even beyond all greatness. We thank Loba because of his faithfulness and that he lives inexplicably out of all realities. So today, the message I'm sharing, is a message that was given by Zula. And that message was given by him by the permission of Loba, by his grace, by his all divine power. And we are going to enter into the sphere of forbidden knowledge. Because you're told in Proverbs 19:2, the lack of science is good for no one. When you go on Google, Yahoo, Wikipedia, on the search engine, and you search the definition of voodoo, and you'll get some result. The others will say that voodoo means witchcraft, it means magic, and so on. But in the teaching, we are going to open your eyes because many people don't know what voodoo really is. Even the voodoo practitioners, those who are initiated in voodoo, even the high priest, they don't know the truth we are about to share here. Because in voodoo, there's many different ranks. So even the priests, priestesses, and those in different lodges, different ranks, and so on, they don't really know the hidden face of voodoo. Its origin, the very beginning, its very foundation, what spirit are really behind it. And we're also going to see what the Bible tells us regarding the spirit, the entities behind the voodoo. Because in John chapter 3, verse 11, you're told we speak of what we know and we testify to what we have seen. So here we're going to start, we'll start with the Tonton Macoutes. Who were the Tonton Macoutes? They were paramilitaries, here, so it's an article online that I'm gonna read. You can also verify for yourself. It says this. Tonton Macoutes was a member of the paramilitary police, the volunteers of the national security, a paramilitary militia created after an assassination attempt against President François Duvalier on July 29, 1958. It was later used by his son and successor, Jean-Claude Duvalier. So you're told here, in the past, it's a recent past regarding the history of Haiti. So in Haiti, there was a Duvalier, so the President François Duvalier, who at one point was a coup d'etat, so a military coup, a coup attempt. There have been a coup. And when the coup d'etat happened, they formed a small secret society, a close protection detail to prevent attacks, but not just physical attack, but also occult attacks. Yes, that's the story. The story we're telling here, many Haitians also don't know. So to protect him against physical attack and even spiritual occult attacks, and we'll tell you why. He said people were recruited basically to be enrolled and listed in that protection detail into the group called the Tonton Macoutes. So basically they recruited many people, let's say people, villagers, people who didn't study a lot, some brigands, some bandits, they were recruited. And so they were enlisted in the Tonton Macoutes circle. And you should know that in the Tonton Macoutes circle, there are several branches. There are those who would pillage, who will kill, who will slaughter, who will terrorize the population, who will even commit sexual assault, violence, and so on. And there are some in the group, so those, they were not initiated into the voodoo. They were not initiated into the knowledge of the voodoo. They were not initiated into the antidote to the voodoo, into the hidden face of voodoo. But there was also another group of the Tonton Macoutes. So in the Tonton Macoutes, they were trained, they were initiated. That's why they had the right, they could enter into the temples where voodoo was practiced. They could arrest people without being afraid or bothered regarding voodoo of the practice, because they themselves were initiated into that practice, into that knowledge. So because they've been initiated into what lays behind it. So now you must know where the name Tonton Macoutes comes from, because there's no effect without cause. Why do we say Macoute? What is a Macoute? What is the definition of Macoute? So Macoute is a sack. A sack. So like a bag. A sack. And so that's the definition, what it means, Macoute, so a bag, a sack. And because of there was a legend, a story from Haiti. There was a personage, a peasant, basically in the legend, in the story. So here I'm gonna read regarding the article, which tells you a nation peasant who wore a blue and red suit, you see, and a large shoulder bag called Macoute. So this peasant carried a bag on him, and that was the Macoute. Now, what was it about that bag? What is the mystery behind that bag? What was inside that bag? Many in Haiti know the story of this peasant, of this, the story of that person, regarding the legend and so on, but without really knowing what was hidden in the bag. And we're going to reveal to you what was hidden in the bag of that old man in Haiti, according to the story, according to the legend. It's a rumor, a legend, and so on. So, but the fact remained that regarding that story, there was a bag. And many people feared that man. That man in the legend, in the story, that peasant, it's comparable to the story of the father weeper, who are old man weeper, who used to come and frighten the children, along with this, the one called Saint Nicholas. Because in the story, Saint Nicholas, known also as a Santa Claus, for him, in the story they tell you he bring the gift to children and so on. But there's also another personage known as Father Weeper, and he was evil, bad, because he didn't come to basically bring gift to the children, but to frighten the children, to punish the children. He was a horrible person. And this Haitian man in the legend, in the story, was also compared, basically, he was like a boogeyman, compared to many monsters, many figures who have haunted the news, who have haunted urban legends, and so on. And like I've mentioned, there was a bag in his story. And that bag was something occult. It was an occult thing. The bag was something that involved witchcraft, formulas, magic, and so on. So in short, all the things regarding secret society and the occult. That's why many people feared that peasant, because he wasn't an ordinary peasant, but he was initiated into sorcery, witchcraft, into Haitian, into voodoo, into the practice of voodoo. So they were inspired by this peasant, by this person, by this legend of the old man with the bag called Macoutes, to form a close guard, another secret society known as the Tonton Macoutes. Tonton means basically like uncle, Uncle Macoutes. So Tonton Macoutes. So not everyone who were in Tonton Macoutes, in that group, not everyone was initiated, but there was a branch into the group of the Tonton Macoutes that there was a branch that was initiated. And the Tonton Macoutes are also called so here basically bonhomme battant in Creole. Bonhomme battant. Bonhomme it means basically like men, and battant is like fighting, battant. So bonhomme battant, that's what it's called in Creole. So for that, we're gonna give you the definition of voodoo. When you type into Google, Yahoo, the search engine, different search engine you type, it tells you that they will tell you voodoo, regarding voodoo. They'll tell you this. Voodoo or voodoo, it's a religion. So here it tells you it's a religion, a common religion of former kingdom of Dahomey. So Dahomey was in West Africa. So this is what the article tells you when you search regarding voodoo. So that's what some claim. So it says here, this religion, so it's a religion, a common religion of the former kingdom of Dahomey. This religion of cosmic order stemming from African animist cults was practiced in multiple communities. Now regarding animist, because it says stemming from African animist cults. The word animist, well, the definition is from Latin animus, originally spirit, then soul, the belief in a spirit, a vital force, animal, living being, object, but also natural elements like stone or the wind, as well as protective spirit. But you're told here that these souls are mystical spirit manifestation of the deceased, or of animal deities. So this is regarding animist. So you have to understand, in voodoo, there's many people who practice voodoo, the priest, priestess voodoo. And the followers as well. They believe in the deceased, that when someone died, the deceased, their ancestor can appear to them. So it's basically the cult of the ancestors, the cult of the dead. And you'll see in their practice, they'll throw themselves on fires, on the fires, and so on. And we're going to explain why they throw themselves into the fire, what happened when they throw themselves into the fire, and what happened to others because also some others do some practices on the edge of the water, so by the water. And we are going to explain why and what are the spirits that are invoked in voodoo. Were they good spirits or evil spirit? According to Wikipedia, Google search engine, they give you, like I've read, regarding the origin of voodoo. They will say, they claim that it's from West Africa, regarding the kingdom of Dahomey. And they will say it's a common religion, that is a religion. And they're going to speak regarding the origin of voodoo. But is it the truth? Because who came to write, who has written that story, that origin? Did they really know what they wrote? You should also know that in India, there's also animals that are considered deities. Not only in India, so in Asia. So you have in China, well, India is in Asia, in China as well. Um, Pretty much a little bit all over the place, everywhere. Many people consider deities, animals are as deities, as their divinity, as their god, and so on, as gods, and so on. Which is also widespread in voodoo cult. So he says here regarding the animist, regarding those spirits. He says, they can act on the tangible world in the beneficial or harmful way. It is therefore appropriate to worship them. This is what they claim here regarding people who believe that some animals have some mystical powers and they can act in either a beneficial way or harmful way, and that basically they should be worshipped. People, some believe that. And you have to understand that the word condemned this. Because they worship animals. For them, animals, the spirits, they can come, take the form, for them, for some people, the spirits can come and take the form of animals, and others will call that theophany. Mystery of theophany is, for example, like in Greek mythology, where Zeus would often descend, come on earth, will take the appearance of a bull to seduce the virgin and so on. And he will often take also the form of an eagle. So you see, it's a similar belief. And the word condemned these practices, these sorts of beliefs, because they were widespread even in ancestral Africa, among the uninitiated, among the rebellious and corrupt uninitiated people. And for that we go in Leviticus chapter 19 verse 31. He says this in the King James Bible: regard not them that have familiar spirit, comma, neither seek after wizard, comma, to be defiled by them. Column. So even the current Bible, it says here, regard not them that have familiar spirits. Familiar spirits. Who are the familiar spirits? What are the familiar spirits? Neither seek after wizards to be defiled by them. So this was written because there were practices even in ancestral Africa, like I've mentioned, for ages, where people were consulting familiar spirits, consulting wizards, people that were involved into sorcery. Even before the Dahomey kingdom, the Benin, or other tribes in Nigeria would practice this. The current this concept of voodoo, this practice already existed, but it was called by another name, so it's not something new. So the voodoo you see today, whether in Haiti, in Canada, because even yes, in Canada there are people who practice voodoo, in the United States, in Africa as well, in Benin, even in Brazil, many people practice voodoo. We're going to explain to you what this voodoo is, and ancient voodoo. Even before Leviticus 19:31. In Leviticus 19:31, it says in the English Standard Version, "Do not turn to mediums or necromancers, semicolon, do not seek them out, comma, and so make yourselves unclean by them." New King James Version, "Give no regard to medium and familiar spirits. Do not seek after them to be defiled by them." Amplified Bible, "Do not turn to mediums, in bracket, who pretend to consult the dead, or to spiritists who have spirit of divination. Do not seek them out to be defiled by them." So the mediums, those are the people who invoke the spirit. They're also called, so not to mediums or spiritists. So they'll consult the spirits. They are the people who are in communications with the spirits. And they will say they are in the communication in the spirits of the dead, of the people who have passed away, of the ancestors. That's what that's basically what many will believe in voodoo. That, like I've mentioned, that they can be in contact with someone who have passed away, an ancestor, and so on. They can invoke them. That's what is that? That's a necromancer. That's what it is. A necromancer. And it says here in the Amplified Bible, "Do not turn to mediums." So this is in Leviticus 19:31. "Do not turn to mediums," in bracket, "who pretend to consult the dead." Why does it say here, "who pretend to consult the dead"? And which type of spirits are behind it? So a medium is a necromancer, and you have to understand that those mediums, those spiritists, those necromancers, they are possessed by evil spirits, by demons. by spirits of which type of spirit? Reptiles spirits. Reptile spirits are religious demons. Reptile spirits are religious demons. So that's why it was mentioned in Leviticus 19:31 to do not consult those people. Do not go after them. Again, to those who consult the spirits, because those people are possessed. So don't seek them out, because you will become impure upon contact with them. Why upon contact with them? Because these spirits, evil spirits, they are tainted. So they are impure. So when you touch them, or when they enter you, you are also automatically become tainted. You also automatically become defiled, become impure. So in the Bible, in the current classical Bible, it says, do not seek to consult the spirits of the dead. Do not seek to consult the spirits of the dead. The spirits of the dead. You see? Because in some version it says, do not seek. It says, for example, in Leviticus 19:31, Duálá Bible, go not aside after wizard, neither ask anything of soothsayers, to be defiled by them. And in another translation, so in this translation was regarding those who are in those type of practices. In Bible Parole de Vie translation, it says, do not seek to consult the spirits of the dead. The spirits of the dead. Because the spirits of the dead, in any way, they will defile you. In the translation David Martin, do not turn away after those who have the spirit of the dead. And behind that, the necromancers, it's a python spirit, or pitika. So you have to understand that when we talk about the spirit of the dead, people who invoke the dead, who say no, who call themselves mediums, spiritists, necromancers, that they claim that to have the ability to invoke the dead, to speak to the dead, to speak to the spirit of the dead. Other will say, call them also fortune tellers and so on. And even regarding the practice of Ouija, will say, spirits, are you there? and all that. And then supposedly so, and then there will be writings and so on. The thing will move, they claim. We're going to explain to you what are behind it. Or is it really the spirit of the person that was dead? But it says here, do not invoke the spirit of the dead. That's our forbidden practice. So already the word condemn those who will attempt to contact, and those also will consult the people who will claim to have the ability to contact the dead, the spirit of the dead. And in voodoo, it's the same thing. That's what they claim, what's going on there. And you must not ignore that when someone, let's say, so-called medium or necromancers, who, like I've mentioned, is a person who's possessed by a python demon. That's the type of spirit that possesses those people who will claim to be in contact with the spirit of the dead. Is a python demon. So they are possessed. And you have to understand that that demon, when the necromancer is possessed by the python demon, that demon will contact his brothers, his kin, other demons. And it's not that the necromancer who's possessed has the ability, or the necromancer or the medium has the ability to contact, to call the spirit of someone who passed away, maybe your the grandfather, your uncle that passed away, and so on, or the ancestors, their spirits. No. It's not that. It's a demon that basically is going to take the appearance of the person that was dead. So basically the necromancer who is in contact with python demon, who's possessed by python demon, that python demon will call other demons. And those demons are called familiar spirits. And when that demon takes the form of, let's say, an ancestor, somebody who who passed away, whose story was told, he will take the form of, let's say, that person, that grandfather, that person who you knew, and the demon will appear. The demon is not going to appear physically, because the demons, even Satan, the fallen angels, are not allowed to take on a physical form. And this has nothing to do with the passage in the Bible that says Satan himself transformed into the angel of light. An angel has neither flesh nor blood, nor bones. An angel is a spirit. So what are the spirits of the dead? It's basically they are demons who take the form of a deceased person. And that demons will come, will lie, will claim to be basically that person that was, or the spirit of that person that passed away. Why do they come to lie? Why do they take the form of a deceased person? Because Esombe himself, known in the current Bible as Paul, he says that it is appointed for man to die only once, after which come the judgment. And Munmun, known as Solomon, also says, in the realm of the dead, at least for those who are not known, those who did not know the verb of loba, in the realm of the dead, there are no memories, no consciousness, no activity, no desire, nothing, as if you were never born. So, in the realm of dead, Solomon says there is no memories, no consciousness, no activity, no desire, nothing. You see? So, the spirit of someone that died, those who don't know the verb of the ancestors and so on, the grandfathers, the people who go and consult, cannot come to then answer, speak. So they are the demons who will take the parents, like I've mentioned, of the deceased to try to basically contradict what Solomon taught, tells us regarding the realm of the dead. Is basically to bring the false doctrine, you see, to bring the false doctrine, where people will believe that no, the ancestors have some, that's the cult of the dead basically, they have some power, they have some abilities, they can interfere into our realm. So it's basically lies to lead people astray from the true spirituality, away from the spirit, away from the commandment, away from the precepts of the verb of loba, away from the law. And many people, many prophets, many initiated knew this. That's why in Israel, at least in ancestral Africa, the initiated kings forbade these people, these sorcerers, practitioners of the occult who were claiming to be in contact of the spirits of the dead. So the initiated kings forbade the necromancers. Because why? Because they're basically agents of Satan, the bobé, the evil spirit. They are false prophets. In Leviticus chapter 20, verse 6, it says, and the person who turns to medium and familiar spirits, to prostitute himself with them, I will set my face against that person and cut him off from his people. So, and the person who turned to medium. So if you go and consult the mediums and familiar spirit, so try to invoke your ancestor, your grandfather, and so on, his spirit. That's what the scriptures warn against. It tells us to prostitute himself with them. It's basically a form of prostitution because it's a disobedience. I will set my face against that person and cut him off from his people. And that's why earlier in Leviticus 19 verse 31, in the Amplified Bible, you're told, do not turn to mediums, in bracket, who pretend to consult the dead. They pretend to consult the dead. Because those who are in the known, in ancestral Africa, the necromancers, they knew that no, they cannot contact the dead person, the spirit of the dead. But they were possessed by the python spirit. They were consulting the familiar demons, familiar spirits. That's why it says, give no regard to mediums and familiar spirits. It's the familiar spirits, familiar demons that they will basically consult, because they're pretending to consult the dead. They're pretending to be speaking to your ancestor. They're pretending to speak to your grandfather, to your father who passed away, to your uncle, and so on. But they're not. It's pretension. They're in contact with familiar demons. So they are lying. And in Leviticus 20, verse 6, Contemporary English Version, I will be your enemy if you go to someone who claims to speak with the dead, and I will destroy you from among my people. And we're going to explain why things happen at the very heart of voodoo. Here, voodoo, it's basically was born. It's basically a meeting of cults, of different cults, traditional cults, from the uninitiated, according to the date they will give. So the rebellious and corrupt uninitiated, for them it was traditional. It was basically in large villages, often in forests, near some trees, some baobabs, in the mountain, on the hills, the streams, by the streams, the rivers, and so on. For them is the traditional cult of gods. For example, you have the Yoruba gods, and Feng and Hai Eye deities. So you see that voodoo basically was born from the meeting of many cultures, many people who came together because they were uninitiated. They were not initiated into the forbidden knowledge. They were not initiated into the knowledge of the verb of loba. That's why we say forbidden knowledge, because it's forbidden in relation to their level, to their ability, into to their state of consciousness. So many people basically gathered together to worship and that's what is called the voodoo. Basically, many people who were not initiated into the truth but were into the lies, into the occult, they basically all gathered. Meaning, it means that each tribe, from different places, many people, uninitiated, who were into the occult, they worship their false god. false deities, and so on. And meaning they were worshiping demons and even high-ranking fallen angels. So they gathered to begin practice. Basically, it was a big gather to practice their cult, to perform their ceremonies. They drank, they ate, they danced, they went into trances. And that's when a spirit arrived. That's when a big spirit arrived. A spirit came into their midst. The story I'm telling here, I'm sharing here, we're telling here, it's a story that even the voodoo priest, high-ranking, the people high-ranked in voodoo, in the very advanced lodges, they don't know this story. They have not been initiated into this knowledge. Everything they're doing now, it's basically nonsense. It's basically a farce. When these different tribes they gathered, that meeting of the different tribes who were in the occult, different people of the uninitiated. There were also uninitiated chiefs with them. They will gather, they will dance, they will hold ceremonies. This goes back long way, so a long time ago in ancestral Africa. So they gathered. And so basically these uninitiated into the occult, they were already worshipping their false god, their demons. So they were already possessed by demons. And at one point during the ceremony, when they were doing their dances, people were in trance and so on. At one point during the ceremony, a spirit arrived, a spirit that surpassed all other spirit they had. All other demons that they had. But it was not Satan. It was not Satan. So first there was a spirit that arrived. That's why when you type the definition of voodoo, it means, voodoo doesn't mean witchcraft, because there are, when you type, you'll see some will say the definition of voodoo is witchcraft, magic, and so on. That's not the definition. The very definition of voodoo, it means the apart spirit. The spirit apart. Apart from who? Apart from the other spirit that were there. So voodoo, it means the spirit. Other definition, it also means simply the spirit. Because you have to understand that these tribes, different tribes, when they gathered, so before they were worshiping their many false gods, many demons, impure spirits, evil spirits, and when they gathered, they made a ceremonies, dance. They were in trance into their occult ceremony. And during their incantations, during their ritual, it was a occult ritual. And smell. There was also a foul smell that emanated. There were terrible emanations. And then suddenly, a demon appeared. A high-ranking demon came. So during their ceremony, when they're in trance, in their rituals and so on, when they gathered, basically a demon appeared. A high-ranking demon came. A demon that surpassed all other demons that were in possession of those people. So that's why it's called the apart spirit. And that demon, this demon is what we call a voodoo. It is this demon that we came to know as voodoo. It was a spirit, a part spirit. Basically, a part demon, a demon. He was apart from the other demons that were already that were there at the ceremony. In Daniel chapter 2 verse 11 it says, "Moreover, the thing which the king demands is difficult, and there is no one else who could declare it to the king except God's, comma, whose dwelling place is not with mortal flesh." You see? Because that spirit was separate. He was distinct from the other. So Daniel 2:11 in the New American Standard Bible, like I've said, it says, "Moreover, the thing which the king demands is difficult, and there is no one else who could declare it to the king except the God whose dwelling place is not with mortal flesh." So gods, except God's, whose dwelling place is not with mortal flesh. So they're not usually there. Dwelling place. They don't dwell with the mortal flesh. So you have to understand that that spirit, he was separate. Than the spirits that were usually among them, that the demons that were usually among them, because these people were in the occult. And is the spirit of voodoo. That's when the voodoo spirit arrived. So that spirit, this high-ranking demon. And also those Ongan or voodoo priest. And in the Fang dialect, voodoo, it tells you this. Voodoo comes from the word voodoo, which in the dialect Fang means spirit. And spirit here, they wrote with capital S. Basically, it was in French, capital E, but so capital S. So to differentiate between the little demon that was the little demon that were there, that these people were accustomed to, and that superior demon that appeared at that ceremony, at that occult ritual. It was so to differentiate between the little demon and the high-ranking demon. The name Huno, so that's the name of that spirit, voodoo. So we're going to locate this spirit. That spirit known as voodoo. In Acts chapter 23, verse 9, it says in the King James Bible, "And there arose a great cry, column, and the scribes that were of the Pharisees part of the Pharisees part arose and strove, saying, We find no evil in this man, but if a spirit or an angel had spoken to him, let us not fight against God." So this is regarding, in the current Bibles, regarding Paul. His true name is Esombe. So Paul of Tarsus, he says this, "We find no evil in this man, but if a spirit or an angel." Why does he say a spirit or an angel? We know that angels are spirits. But they say here, the scribes who were of the Pharisees says, "But if a spirit or an angel had spoken to him." And he says, let us not fight against God. But how can you fight against God? It has nothing to do with the story of Tindi, known as Jacob in the current Bibles, where they say basically that Jacob wrestled with God, fought with God. That's nonsense. It was an angel, and he did not even wrestle. He did not fight an angel. You cannot fight an how? How are you going to fight him? You don't stand, you don't make the weight. You can't compete. Tindi, his true name, basically he wanted the blessing. But the readers, the translators, the people who came to copy the stories, they did not know. And they said he wrestled with God. And you need to understand that even in ancient times, those uninitiated called those who were uninitiated, they called basically angels the spirits. Basically, all the angels are basically the Namuloloma. But for the uninitiated, even because there's different categories of spirits of the great order of things, right? In the great order of things, there are the Ophanims, the Maba, who are the Mabao. There's the Cherubim, the Seraphim, throne, dignitaries, domination, authority, all kind and sort of spirits of the great order of things, in the great order of things. We simply call them spirit, higher spirit, which then people will say means gods. And the uninitiated, they refer to them as the angels. And here in Act chapter 23, verse 9, it says, in the English, Act 23:9, English Standard Version, then a great clamor arose, and some of the scribes of the Pharisees parties stood up and contended sharply. We find nothing wrong in this man. What if a spirit or an angel spoke to him? Question mark. So, why do we distinguish here between a spirit or an angel? So you have to understand that in voodoo, in that witchcraft, all of that, in the occult, they invoke the spirits. You see, they invoke spirits. And in Hebrew chapter 1, verse 7, it says, in the New King James Version, and of the angels, he says, who makes his angel spirits and his ministers a flame of fire. And in the translation, Maître de Sarcy says, also as for the angel, the scripture says, God uses spirits to be his ambassadors and his angels and burning flames to be his ministers. So, you have to understand that the uninitiated, for them, because they're not initiated in the truth, they don't know how to distinguish between the spirits, between if it is an angel or if it is another spirit, demons. They don't know. They don't know how to distinguish. What are spirits? An angel is a spirit. Is, for example, like in the animal world, regarding wild beasts. For example, the wild cats, big cats, the feline. You'll see there is the lion. You also have pumas, jaguar. You have panthers, tigers, you see? They are wild beasts, they are big cats, but they are different kind, different race. So, when we talk about spirits, there are different forms, breeds, type, sort, race. In 1 John chapter 4, verse 1, it says, Beloved, do not believe every spirit. Come on. So here in 1 John chapter 4, verse 1, in the English Standard Version, it says, Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, for many false prophets have gone into the world. What does he say here? Test the spirits. Because they are evil spirits. They are these spirits, the spirit of voodoo, who constantly return. Basically, if you want to know the spirit of voodoo, that spirit is a high-ranking demon that animates almost, that is basically present in all the religions, that you see today. The voodoo, that spirit is not only one demon at work. No, there are others similar to him. They are kins of him, his counterparts, who have the equivalent, the same powers, same rank. That's why you see voodoo in regarding voodoo. When you look regarding the practice of voodoo, their practices, what they do, and you look at what they do, for example, in India, in their practices, in their religions, you'll see similarities. It's basically the same things. In different religions, several different religions, even in different tribes, in the island, in Africa, you'll see they practice pretty much the same thing. Even the prophets of Baal, because Baal was also associated with the spirit of voodoo. Because the prophet of Baal, they made incisions on themselves. They made animal sacrifices. Voodoo is the same thing. They do animal sacrifices. So they are all high-ranking demons. So here it says, at the origin of the word, at the origin of African voodoo, you're told that the deity Shingo, was worshipped by the Yoruba ethnic tribes of present-day Nigeria. Shingo. In Vodou, there's a ceremony that takes place around a fire. And you'll see they'll start dancing. They walk through the fire. And I'll show here picture. Okay. So I'm going to show a picture of basically what they do in Voodoo during their rituals, their ceremony, and so on. There we go. Okay. So you see here. So here, okay, so this is the first, there we go, this picture. You see here, so so this is so you can see here during the ritual, you see it's around the fire. And they'll fall on the fire and so on. They'll go into trance. You see, they'll basically be possessed. And they'll be in full worship in the middle of incantations. When they are in trance, in their ceremony, in their full worship, basically, there are doors that are being open in themselves. Entrance doors. And for the demon, high-ranking demons to come in. That is to say, to lay eggs, because it's not only one, but many of these demons. Many will come. They will, you're told, according to, there's a date in the present day Nigeria, Yoruba, regarding the Yoruba, in Nigeria, present-day Nigeria, there is one called Shango. And he's basically, in their belief, that Shango is the equivalent in Norse mythology of the personage known as Odin. Odin's son. Thor, known as Thor. Because in the Norse mythology, there's basically, there's Odin, Loki, Thor, and so on. And in Shango mythology, in their Yoruba, in their mythology as well, they have a personage known as Shango, and he's similar to Thor. So basically, the false Viking god of Norse mythology. And in the current Bible, he has another name. He's called Moloch. In modern voodoo, they're in contact with Moloch. They worship Moloch, the great demon Moloch. In Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 10, it says in the King James Version, "There shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, or no one, or one who practices witchcraft, or a soothsayer, or one who interprets omen, or a sorcerer." So here you're told in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 10, "There shall not be found among you anyone who make his son or daughter pass through the fire." You see? Because that's what they do in voodoo, in their witchcraft. In Leviticus chapter 18, verse 29, and thou shalt not lay any of thy seed pass through the fire to Moloch, to Molech here, neither shalt thou profane thy name, the name of thy God. So here in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 10, let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter to the fire. So here in the current Bible, they'll say, neither shall you profane the name of thy God. And then in Deuteronomy, let no one be found among you who sacrifice their son or daughter in the fire. And in the current Bible, they say God, but God means divinity, is not the creator. The creator is Loba, the only and unique creator. And you cannot profane the name of Loba. So you'll see regarding in their practice in voodoo, what they'll do. They'll do animal sacrifices. You see, here, yes, okay, so yeah, you see, this is what they do in voodoo. They drink blood. They even eat the flesh. And some even say in Benin that some will dig up corpses of their enemies and eat them, their body, their flesh, their rotten flesh. And that's what they claim to. Basically, to obtain more spiritual powers, according to what others will say. So you see here the picture. This is in voodoo. Basically, they cut off the goat's head, and he's putting it in his mouth, and he's drinking the blood. You see? That's what it says in Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 23, New King James Version. Only be sure that you do not eat the blood, for the blood is the life. You may not eat the life with the meat. Another version, it says, however, strictly avoid consuming the blood of the animal. You see? So these are the voodoo practices, what they do. What people don't understand regarding voodoo, their rituals, what they do. What is it? You have to understand that in history, at the time of the initiates, for example, Tindi, known in the current Bibles as Jacob. You're told that Jacob seized an angel and basically said that he wanted his blessing. the angel blessed him. So Jacob thanked the angel. That does not mean that Jacob worshipped that angel. You see, so basically, at the time of the initiates, they were initiated. For example, in the current Bibles, you have Daniel in the lion's den. So there was an angel who appeared to him, who appears. There's an angel who appears and basically protect him basically from the lion. Allow so that the lions don't kill Daniel. So there was an entity there. So there was an entity basically in charge of the animals. Now let's say Daniel thanks that entity, that angel. Daniel is not worshiping that angel. It's just how it was. For example, the initiates, they could go, those who were initiated who were in the truth, they could go in the forest to cut down the trees. But before cutting the trees, they could put their hand on the trees and they will speak to the tree. But some will say, but that's not witchcraft. They were not, that's not worshiping. They were not worshiping the tree or the trees. When the initiate, for example, if he put his hand on the tree, speak to the tree, for you, you'll say, the tree is not alive like you. The tree is not alive like us, meaning it's not the same kind of life as you imagine. But behind the trees, you have to understand, the initiate is not speaking to the tree directly. He's getting into contact with the entity in charge of the forest. So he's in contact with the entity of the forest. And when I say entity of the forest, it's not a demon. It's not an evil spirit. It's basically, it's an angel of the great order of things. That's why even in the book of Revelation, you're told regarding the angel of the waters. So there's angel of the waters, angel of the fire, and so on. Different entities that the ancestors, the initiates, who were in the known, who were initiated, they knew. So they could thank this entity, this spirit of the great order of things, or this other entity, they could thank for the blessings maybe they received. But they did not worship these entities because there's only one creator, Loba, who we must worship. But later on, because this is basically what was happening among the initiates, but then Satan and the Bamululuma, Bungulane, so the fallen angels, they took the appearance of certain entities to seduce. That's why you're told even in the current Bible that Satan disguised himself as an angel of light. Basically, they take the appearance of the entities or of the entity that initiate new to seduce people, to lead them astray. And many people were deceived. Many were deceived by these false apparitions. And that's why you see even in ancient Egypt, they began to worship false gods. False gods. And that's where you see the sacrifice began. They will kill the animal, offer animals to their so-called god. And that's where you see satanic rituals, the voodoo, and so on. So, saying here, modern voodoo is pure sorcery. It's occult incantation. When people go into their trance, when the entrance door is open, the demons enter them. They're possessed. They make you believe that it is the true spirituality, is the spirituality of black people. That's what African black people should follow. No. In ancestral Africa, it was not regarding religion. It was spirituality. It is the spirituality. And the spirituality that comes from the great order of things. That is to say, spirituality is a matter of race. So now, no matter your color, your race, if you accept the word, the message of Duálá, the teachings, you are part of the same community. So voodoo, once again I repeat, all the religions are false. They are under the influence of voodoo. They practice voodoo, that's what they do. Even the Catholics, their ritual, you see, those are voodoo rituals that they're doing. Because the voodoo demon is there. There is Moloch. There are high-ranking demons as well who are at work. And the religious demons, Python demons, Python spirits who act, who are there. So that was the message regarding the voodoo, its witchcraft, its sorcery. All glory be to Loba, the only and unique creator.